Hello, hello everyone. This is Hong Yao Isaac again. Um, this week, as you can see on my title, I will be talking about the money matter. As we all know, money talks, and every services ranging from lawyers, doctors, and interpreters and translators, of course, these are all require money. Okay, and despite uh, you know, besides that, you may be using a government services such as Department of Human Service or the Department of Immigration or Border Protection, such as the Home Affairs, or I would say the majority of interpreters and translators services in Australia, they are paid services. These are not volunteers. Okay, so today I will be talking about the money matter. How much and what are you expecting to see when it comes to getting a quote from the interpreter or a translator, and what would you consider when it comes to hiring your future interpreters and translator when it comes to money? How can you understand interpreters and translator better so that you can know what to expect when you're negotiating your future quote with a professional certified translator and interpreter? So let's begin. First point, I would like to reiterate the fact that there is a very, very big differences between a professional or certified translator or interpreter with someone who is bilingual. If you watch my last video, you will probably notice that a interpreter or translator in a professional or certified sense requires a lot of trainings, professional development, studies, background knowledge, note-taking skills, and all sort of matters. This requires a lot more work, a lot more training, and a lot more professionalism. Therefore, if you go online in Australia, I don't know what your background is, but for example, put it in my way, Chinese background, okay? If you're a Chinese Australian or you are someone who came from China and you went on Google or any local Australian Chinese website and you type in translator or interpreters, 笔译,口译 service, so you can see there are so many so-called options available. Some of them can go really cheap. Some of them can have almost unlimited availability for you. These people, I would say, are mostly bilinguals who either truly or they perceive themselves as someone who could speak perfect English or knows English really well, and they offer the service as a bilingual person. So if you wanted to have someone like that type of service, which is much cheaper, you can go ahead. However, make sure you're doing, maybe you're just meeting with some friends or meeting with someone who is just a contractor or anyone that does not hold significant financials or legal or whatsoever business consequences. So these people, they are not accredited, they are not trained, they know English, they know another language, so they can actually listen and speak and tell you whatever they remember. And so this, we put it aside. We're not going to talk about them. So today, we only talk about interpreters and translators who are professionally trained. They are certified by NAATI, and these people are actually, they are reliable and they will be responsible legally or professionally when you hire them. So now let's begin. To find a good translator or interpreter, the best way to do is go on naati.com.au, NAATI. So NAATI is, once again, is the National Accreditation Authority for Translators and Interpreters. This is a national organization based in Canberra, Australia, and they had an office in all states. And they are the one who's, they are a private company that issues all the accreditations, all the certifications and credentials to all translators and interpreters in Australia. And since, I think, 2 years ago, when NAATI got into a reform where they transfer themselves from accreditation to a certification system, they actually developed a system of translator or interpreters catalogs, where all certified translators and interpreters in all languages, in all directions, are listed on NAATI website. So if you are looking for a translators and interpreters to provide, language service to you, the first stop, if you don't have the connection, you can always go on naati.com.au, NAATI. So you just look at the directory, and then type in your suburbs, your state, and your postcode. Then you can see who are the certified, recognized interpreters and translators near your state, near your suburb. So this is a really, really convenient way of getting translating and interpreting service in Australia. You don't have to Google it. You don't have to ask your connections. You can just go on NAATI website and everything's there for you. So once you've done and all the translators and interpreters on that website, they are all certified. Okay, so they're professionally trained. They are all bound by NAATI's or AUSIT Code of Conduct and Professional Conduct and Ethics. So these people, they know what they're doing. They have the credential. They have the certification. And these people, you can rest assured that they will do a good job. So now, what are we gonna, when you talk about quoting and pricing, so whatever I'm going to talk about later in the latter part of this video, it will be all based on certified or professional translators and interpreters. Now, rule number one for negotiating with translator or interpreters on how much they are going to charge you, or what we say a quote. Yeah, when you're negotiating a quote, rule number one is there is no fixed rule. Okay, Australia is a free market economy, so like other professionals, there's no rules or there isn't any recommended, schemes or recommended standard for translators or interpreters to set up their quote. So it's entirely up to each individual translator or interpreter to come up with a quote. So there's no reference price there. You can of course compare the price, but it's up to you to call multiple translators or interpreters. You contact them and ask for different quotes. So you pick and choose between the ones that you think is the most suitable and appropriate, and be aware of those that charge you super low price, because they're probably, especially in translation services, they probably just going to copy and paste all your important legal document onto Google Translate, click translate, and then they will just fix the grammar, fix some words, and you don't really want someone, this kind of service to jeopardize the validity, and might down the track may bring you into trouble. So look for someone who is rather reasonable, or sort of along the median, okay, along the average. Don't get someone who's too low, because possibly by charging you exceptionally low quote, they could care just as little as you pay them. So since there's no rules, no fixed standard, they can charge you anything. I heard that there are interpreters who charge only $20 an hour. And there are those who are professionally trained, or they are really busy, or they're recognized in the industry. They charge you maybe $900, $1,000 a day. So it's all entirely up to you. It's up to you to, how serious your matter is and how much budget you have. So you can always go and shop around. Okay, so since there's no fixed rules and it's entirely up to individuals, then it comes to, negotiation. So usually when it comes to interpreters, they charge you by the hour. So what would they do is they will actually ask you, okay, so where do you want me to go? Who am I interpreting for? And how long are you expecting me to interpret? So what they will do is, for example, you're going to the court. Okay, this court, somehow they don't have a community interpreters there. They need you to get your own interpreter. And you will have to tell them that the appointment by the court is from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that brings in a 4 hours window. So they will let you know that, okay, you will book me for 4 hours. So within this 4 hours, despite the fact that you may be the first case heard on the court, 9 o'clock sharp in the morning, and it took about like what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to finish the whole procedure, you booked the interpreter for the whole morning. Therefore, it is accepted that interpreters are to be paid by the length of period that they are booked, not by the length of time where they provided you with the service, because there is an opportunity cost. By not coming to your service, they may get money from other services, especially if they are already working for other interpreting agencies. So no matter you go through individuals, no matter you go through agencies, you have to pay for the entire booked period for the interpreters. So there's no run away from that. Okay, and for translator, on the other hand, is usually they will give you a quote based on two things. The most commonly used rule is that they will estimate how many words would be translated in the target text. For example, you have a piece of document that is about 300 words in your language, and then you want a translator to translate them to English. And this translator, they will estimate by translating this foreign language document into a English document, how many words are there? So maybe in some language, you can express a really lengthy and complicated idea in very precise amount of words. However, in English, you have of, the, you have a, or the countable, uncountables, or the pronouns, and it could get much longer. Whereas in some other languages, like Arabic, when they can go on and on and on and on for like a really long sentence, but in English, you can just do it in much shorter sentences, segments where you can talk about an idea within just a few words. That happens. So the majority of the translator, they will estimate how many words it is in a finished version of the translated document. But there are some, like myself, for example, I usually do it the easy way, where I just do the word count for the source text original documents and tell you how many words are there, and I just add a little bit or subtract a little bit from the source text and give you a quote. So different translator quote differently, but the rule of thumb is they will all based on the number of words. So they will let you know that per unit, for example, one word, I'll charge you 15 cents. One word, I'll charge you 25 cents. This is how it goes. So it depends on the difficulties and the urgencies. So if you're just giving someone a piece of, very simple explanation of how to change diapers, okay? Just say, okay, you're translating it from your language into English or English into another language. So these are simple steps. So they will definitely charge you lower per word, maybe just 10 cents per word. You have 100 words, that's like $10. It could be. But if you're going into legal documents, such as a contract, a business contract that worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, they could well charge you $2 per word, which is reasonable because this involves a big matter. So a lot of translators, they will actually base on how difficult the document is, how much work they're expecting to put into translation, and how much time they're expecting to put into this translation, and charge you accordingly. And unfortunately, I'll say that there are so many big companies, okay? Those I'm talking about big miners, international miners from my home country, the country where I was born in China, where they actually came and they give me like 20 or 30 pages of document with all the specific difficult lexicons, with complicated structures and all the important ideas that is within this big document, legal document. that supposedly they should use for a contract. Okay, they're expecting me to translate it for $100 or even less. They fail to realize that the amount of time, effort, and legal responsibility and consequences that the translator need to face, need to encounter when they translate this piece of document. So unfortunately, they undervalue their own piece of document and they simply think that you're overcharging them. How? So this is not the case. So when you're using a translator, always realize that how if this piece of document is important to you, it is difficult for you. That means for the translator, it is equally important and difficult to translate. So to do a important piece of document translation, you have to pay up. Okay, that's number one. Number two is time. How would you judge? Why would you pay more or less sometimes for the same piece of document? It's by the urgencies. If just say a piece of, I would say just driver's license then, okay? Driver's license, not much words, just maybe 200 words in it, and with the pictures, a bit of formatting. Just say you want it a month later. The translator could charge you as little as $45 or $50 or $60 for one piece of driver's license translation from overseas. However, if you just arrive in Australia and you got a car that is available for you to drive, but you don't have a translated overseas license, so you can't go on street, then you need it urgently. Okay, you came to Australia, you want to start your business immediately, and you want to drive immediately. You want your license the next day. So of course, just like any express service, you have to pay up. So a $50 piece of document, you might have to pay $100 or $150 or $200. It all depends on the urgencies. So there are so many cases, believe me, ever since 2015, that when I became a translator, they'll ask me to translate something overnight and expecting me to pay peanuts, $20 for that. And then they wouldn't even let me talk. They say, oh, by the way, this is our budget. So will you be able to doing it? But if you are doing what this so-called client is doing, you probably will go nowhere. Or as I mentioned before, you risk having a really poorly translated piece of document. They Google translated it. They fix a few words, they put it on it. They don't care if they lose their credentials, and you risk getting in trouble. Okay, so money, times, and difficulties. These three things go together. The less time you allow for a translator, the more difficult the documents become. It will get more expensive. So this is it. Of course, the other way around is if you are doing, you are having a lot of documents for a prolonged period of time. You have hundreds of pages of documents which you don't need it urgently, but it's coming in a steady pace. Of course, economies of scales, right? You will get discount as time goes by. Every translator knows this. However, there is one interesting, mindset of some of our clients. They will say that if you give me a cheaper price, I will do business with you in the long run. Unfortunately, no one has a crystal ball. Okay, who could expect this COVID-19 pandemic happening? At the end of last year, no one. So when you tell a translator or interpreter that if you charge me less, I will do business with you for whatever years you can bluff about, it doesn't really work. It actually goes the other way around. The first time is always going to be a little bit more expensive, and as time goes by, and as the more jobs the translator is doing it for you, they will charge you less and less and less and less. So please note that, and it's just like everywhere else, right? Imagine just look at translator and interpreter as a lawyer. Okay, customer loyalties means someone who uses this person's service for a really long time. Again, there's no fixed rules. Okay, every translator, every individual interpreters has their own judgment to make. You may just meet someone who does exactly the opposite as I do. I don't know, anyone who would do that, and I don't know why would they do that, but it's entirely up to them. So now, again, besides the amount of work, the amount of difficulties and express service, there's another thing that you can consider is customer loyalties. Of course, I think I briefly mentioned it previously, but I would once again reiterate how important and how useful customer loyalty is for a translator and interpreter. It is okay for you to fish around and use a different translator or interpreter every single time. It's fine. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. However, as I say, each translators and interpreters, they have different style. They have different strengths and weaknesses. So the exact same piece of document, the exact same set of sentences may be translated or interpreted quite a little bit differently by different service providers. So if you really think that this translator, this interpreter really suits your demand, that means congratulations, you found someone that really is the translator for you. This is not easy. Now, a lot of my clients, they eventually realize that, oh, okay, Isaac, last time we had a great experience having you as our translator or interpreter, but when you were not available, or well, in a way, when they try to lower the quote for too much, they look for someone else. But unfortunately, it comes out very differently. So that is a little bit non-financial aspect that you may want to consider before jumping around and shop around for a new interpreter or translator. And loyalty, okay? Loyalty actually is really useful. The longer you use a translator or interpreter service, the more likely you get a higher discount from them. Economies of scale, it applies everywhere. It applies to translators and interpreters as well. Okay, of course, all of those above are tips given to clients who engages individual translators and interpreters. Agency has a completely different set of rules. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more formalized. It's going to be different from how individual translators and interpreters do business. However, if you, for example, if you're in a situation where you cannot promise a translator or interpreter a steady, like almost daily amount of work for them to dedicate their time and effort to your business, but at the same time, you need their service quite often, it's probably a good idea to have a agency, as your backup. Any agency, they will have a database of translators and interpreters ready there for you to meet any ad hoc needs that may comes out unexpectedly. So you can always go to agency. They will charge you an extra premium, of course, for their own commission for the agency to run, but they have a lot more resources available. So they have hundreds, if not thousands, of translators, interpreters available from the agencies, but they will charge you more, okay? And they will be less customized. But even if you're requesting the same interpreter or translator from the agency, he or she might not be available, because as individual translators or interpreters, we work for ourselves. We work for many agencies at the same time. I think myself, right? I have 3 regular agencies that I work for, and 3 or 4 others agencies that I pick up ad hoc jobs from as well. So your favorite translator or interpreter may not be available if you decide to go through agencies. So that's just a small point that you might want to be aware of. And again, so now in conclusion, what to be aware of quoting and pricing and negotiating with the translator's interpreter. Number 1, there's no fixed rules. It's all up to your negotiation. Number 2, difficulties in agencies and urgencies of your service means money. Okay, if you are asking a translator or interpreter to do something more difficult, if you are a science firm or research lab that has a lot of big difficult lexicons that requires translation or interpreting with from a service provider, you're expecting to pay up. Okay. Also, economies of scale. If you use the same interpreters and translator that you trust for a longer period of time, it is quite likely, or I would say almost certainly, that you will be expecting higher discount as time goes by. And lastly, and most importantly, please, no matter you're using an agency, no matter you're using an individual translator or interpreter, if it goes too cheap, if it goes too low, it means someone is trying to be dodgy. Okay, you have to think twice. If someone to claim himself or herself to be a certified translator or certified interpreter is charging you $10 an hour, you might just go and look for a bilingual student to help you out. This is from the bottom of my heart. Okay, so I'm also in the sidetrack. Okay, we finished talking about the pricing aspect. If you're engaging individual translator and interpreters, you should always ask for their text file number or most importantly ABN if they have one, Australian business number. So when you ask for invoice, they will give you an ABN. So that you might not get into any tax matter or any further problems. So you always ask for a quote, and they will give you an invoice, and you will pay for the invoice. Once they confirm the payment, it's good to go. So this is just a little bit, transactional part of the service. So please do remember, unless you are a long-term client of an individual translator or interpreter, you will be always required to pay up first. So they will always let you know that, okay, for example, if you want me to provide you with an on-site court interpreting service for 5 hours next Wednesday, it is very likely that they ask you to pay up. I will expect the quoted fees, the translation fees, to be arrived in my bank account by Thursday this week or by Wednesday this week. So this is common. Okay, so if you are engaging a translator or interpreter for the first time, it is very common. It is absolutely normal that you have to pay up in the front. Of course, as time goes by, if you're using the interpreters or translators for years and years and years, they will probably go the other way around, where they will give you a big invoice at the end of each month or at the end of each week, because the frequencies and the sheer amount of service that they provided. So this is a sidetrack, payment kind of method that you have to consider. So usually it's done by bank transfer. Usually is paid ahead of the service. Usually you will need an ABN or text file number from the service provider, and of course a valid bank account. And of course, if you're engaging someone just for a short period of time or just for once-off sort of requirement, it is also likely that someone will require cash payment, which happens. Okay, it's not a lot, but once in a lifetime or once in a million, there will be someone who only they will only accept cash. So that happens as well. So I hope this video helps you to to know what to consider, how to negotiate, what to know about, what to know before you go and negotiate price with a translator and interpreter. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and press the like button or share if you really want to show support. So thank you very much. Wish you all a great week, and stay safe. Protect yourself from COVID-19. It is a serious matter, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.